Hello everyone and welcome back to our combat scenario tutorial series. In the last episode we've done some work on our combat director to enable event dispatchers to work with our level blueprint. However, we're going to make this far more complex now by introducing the concept of stages. So let's go through and add stages to our combat director. So here we are on our combat director and we're going to add something called stages. Now there's two different things that can happen during a combat scenario. One could be a time-based thing, one could be an enemy-based thing. So we need to be able to allow for both of those things to happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a structure to help us manage that. So let's go ahead and create a structure. Go to blueprint, structure, and you denote structures with an F. And we'll call it combat stage. And the combat stage is going to store whether or not it is a time-based one or an enemy-based one, and what values are going to be assigned to it. So go to the structure tab over here, and we want to know what type of event we're looking at, what kind of stage we're looking at. And to make this easier for us and make it more English for us to understand, we're going to use an enum. So we're going to go to blueprint, enumeration, and do E, combat stages. And open that one up. And add two types of stages. We're going to have timed and I don't know, guess remaining. I'll call it. There you go. Actually, we'll change it to body count. Remaining. That's not how you spell remaining. Let's fix that. And there we go. So that'll do there. Close this. And we're going to set this member here to type of stage. And we're going to choose our E combat stage. And the other value is going to be a variable, is going to be a integer. Or a float rather, sorry. And this would be, let's call it value. That'd be float. So for timed type, that would be how many seconds are going to happen before the next stage happens. And for the body count remaining, that's going to refer to how many bodies are remaining. Or need to be remaining before it progresses on. So let's close this now and go to our combat director. I'm going to add the variable for stages. And this is going to be a map. And you're going to use integer, mapped. So change it to a map. Use a little click down on the right here. And change the second integer, the value here, to our structure we just made. So F, combat stage. Compile. And we're going to set up a default stage here of saying 0. And over here, we can now expand open and say what type of stage it's going to be. Okay. So one thing you'll note with maps, if I click on add here, you're going to get this problem. It comes up this error here. I believe in 5.4, this is in 5.3 at the moment. In 5.4, this has been corrected and fixed to allow it to add to the end of the thing. So if I add 0, it'll add just 1. But if that's the case, change this first one here to be 1. So stage 1 is going to be here. And then next one, we'll change that to stage 2. And so on. So that we're not making it 0 based, in other words. But we'll delete that. So I've just got stage 1 set to a timed stage of a value of 5 seconds. Okay, just for our testing purposes. Hit compile. And with this stage, we're going to make an events to handle this. So whenever you are making a variable, you want to think of functions and events that will handle those variables. So in this case, I'm going to make functions to trigger the start and end of our stages. So we're going to do start stage. And on start stage here, we're going to get stages. And we're going to do find. And in this variable, it'll be the current stage we're on. So this we're going to promote to a variable and call it current stage. The default for that will be set to 1. Now we've got this found value. We can split this or break from it, and we're going to get the type of stage and the value from it. So from type of stage, we're going to do a switch on combat stages. And if it's timed, we're going to set up the timer here. So do set timer expire event. And the time here will be this value that we've got from our stages. Now, if it's body count remaining, I need to set this value to a variable that we can track. So I'm going to just take this value here, promote to variable, and do body count remaining. Okay. And the default for body count remaining, I'm going to set to is -1. -1 is often used as a null. So if it's not a valid value, we're going to make it -1. So this needs to know what event is going to be triggered by the timer. So I'm going to drag out from here and do create event. And we're going to do create a matching function. I'm going to rename that to complete stage. When complete stage happens, we're going to increment the current stage with increment tool, which basically just adds 1 to it. And then we're going to check to see whether or not there's a valid stage in our map. So we're going to do find, put that into our find there, and they're going to give us a Boolean. I'm going to put that Boolean into a branch. So if it's true, it means that stage exists, and we can just do start stage. Okay, so it'll just start the next stage up, and off it goes. However, if it doesn't exist, that means we've completed the whole entire scenario. So I can do combat scenario finished and plug that in there. Okay. Now I'll call that event we made last time where it calls combat scenario finished. Now, alongside this, we need it to report back every single stage that gets started. So if we go to complete stage and on start stage here, I want to trigger that with an event dispatcher as well. So I'm going to do on combat stage started. And this is going to actually introduce a input for what stage we're on. So current stage, call that. And we're going to plug in our current stage value. Now we're also going to another event dispatcher for when combat stages have ended. So when we've completed a stage. So we're going to add another one on combat stage ended. And again, we want to know what stage it was. Calling that and put it in right at the start of our function here. We plug in our current stage and we're done. So it's going when we complete a stage, it's going to trigger the event dispatcher, increment the current stage, check whether or not that stage exists for the next one. If it does, start the next stage and say it's been started, and on combat scenario finished otherwise. What I'm actually do is actually put this call on combat stage started inside my start stage. A bit neater. There we are. Okay. So now we've got to trigger the start stage at the very beginning. So rather than going to over here when we do activate enemies, this is when we actually want to start the combat stage as well. So over here, we're going to do start stage. And the current stage is going to be set to 1. So you're going to start at stage 1. So I'll look through the stages here. Find the first one, which is a timed one. Set a timer up. And when that timer ends in 5 seconds, it will complete the stage and ultimately end the combat scenario. So next, we need to do and handle this body count remaining. So when the enemy has died, at the moment, it's checking to see if it's empty. We actually don't want to do this. We just want to say, is the body count less? Is it less than the body count? So rather than empty, we're going to say enemy actors length is less than or equal to the body count remaining. Now, if it's -1, that's never going to happen because we can't get a -1 length. So we're going to plug that into our branch. If it's true, we're not going to do combat scenario finished. We're going to do complete stage instead. Okay, and let's now test that out. So the combat scenario is now a 5-second timer currently. So we should see in 5 seconds end the scenario. Without even me killing the enemy. There you go, and the door's gone. Okay. So I can just last out for 5 seconds. And I can get out. But let's change that combat scenario. So now, rather than being a timed based thing, I want to make it a enemy based thing. So let's go ahead and make our stages here editable. And if I select it in my details panel on the right in the level, you can see here stage timed. I'm going to change that to body count remaining and change the value here to 0. So now that door won't open until I do the body count. So let's just hang about for 5 seconds to make sure it doesn't disappear. Yeah, that's pretty good. And there you go. It's now dead. And that's triggered the combat scenario stage to end. Now, why is that all important? So far, it looks pretty much the same as what we had last time. Well, what we have now is if I go to my level blueprint, with my combat scenario, I can now add events for when a stage has ended and it's been started. So if I go to stage ended here, I can trigger something else to happen, like opening a door, triggering a cutscene, spawning more enemies in, etc. And those stages will make it far more flexible for me to manipulate and do whatever I want with this scenario, including like change music or, whatever I want. So that's what we'll do next time. So there you have it. We've now set up stages, which gives us far more flexibility in the level blueprint. Allows us to set up different staged events, like cutscenes, triggering more enemies to spawn in, etc. So what we're going to do in the next episode is actually start looking at using these stages to trigger off some of these events. So you can join us in the next episode right now over on patreon.com/Ryan Laley. Where you can find all my videos early before everyone else from just $1 a month. A massive thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for their continued support in the channel. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribed, and I'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone.